Profile report story. Guilt. Earlier, Inko was sitting by the corner watching her son sleep. He was laying his head on Ochako's bed with his hand clutched to the young brunette. It was like a twist of fate that now Urarakas the one went into a comatose state due to the injuries she suffered. At first she was worried since Izuku himself was injured and his arms covered with bandages. However, ultimately she did not insist on making him return to his own bed instead. She took a blanket and covered his son with it so he wouldn't get cold. The room was silent, not a voice can be heard. Only the buzzing sound of the air condition and the ECG monitor beeping to the rhythm of Ochako's heart. Even then, Inko still hadn't gotten enough sleep and for hours she just pondered, worrying about the couple and what they went through that night. After hours of just looking after the couple, she decided to head out of the room for a few minutes to get something to drink. All Might stopped by earlier to check on the two but ultimately left so Izuku would not get disturbed in his sleep. She went to the nearest beverage machine for a cup of coffee. That is when she was greeted by Aizawa, Asui, Bakugo and Iida. Blank, underscore, blank, underscore, blank. Izuku, Izuku. Inko nudges her son awake. The young hero fell asleep sitting beside Ochako's bed holding her hand, who, after a few hours still didn't wake up. Deku slowly opened his eyes letting light come through. He turned to his mother not saying anything but by the look on his face was curious on why his mom woke him up. Your teacher and 3 of your friends are here dear. Hey Midoriya Ribbit, hey you guys, what are you doing here? He asked in a weak depressed voice. What do you mean what are we doing here? We came to see how you're doing Izuku. Bakugo replied in a surprisingly calm tone. Indeed, we came with Mr. Aizawa. Iida muttered, oh, I see, thanks guys. Deku replied without an ounce of emotion. The room went silent once again, Izuku refusing to utter another word. Mrs. Midoriya, do you mind if I ask a question? Aizawa called out, yes Mr. Eraser, what is it? All Might told me he's visiting, where is he? Oh he stopped by earlier but Izuku was still sleeping, he bothered waking him up because he was needed in the police station. I see, Aizawa replied then glanced at his students having a conversation with Izuku which Inko noticed as well. We should probably leave them alone for a moment. Aizawa thought it would be better to leave the talking to his students and decided to just bring Midoriya's mother outside so the adults would be able to talk about the current state of the couple as well. Blank, underscore, blank, underscore, blank. With the room left to Izuku, Ochako, and their 3 classmates, Iida decided to break the ice. We heard about what happened Midoriya. I'm glad that both of you are safe. I'm sorry we weren't able to help. No. It's alright it's not your fault. None of you knew about what was happening. It was very late at night so I understand. Deku replied still emotionless, his back turned against them as he sat. His eyes fixed at Ochako who lies unresponsive. Midoriya is at his lowest point. He just watched Uraraka sleep, contemplating about the events that led her to danger. However, even with all this, Izuku failed to share a single tear. The atmosphere was a little too awkward for anyone to utter an entire sentence. Even Bakugo was left speechless. Normally he would just snap Midoriya out of it but this time it was different. If anything, it was my fault. Izuku said suddenly almost as a whisper. I was too weak to prevent this from happening. He was after me, only me. She didn't have to get hurt. Midoriya don't blah. No Iida, this is on me. I already knew Muscular was still running around free in the city. I was already warned that he was hunting me. If only I was not too fixed on my emotions, I could have kept her safe. Promoted stories. You'll also like, It's Complicated and izuocha story. 130k 2.2k. Almost a month and a half since the defeat of the Paranormal Liberation Army and the death of All for One, peace was once again achieved. Although the remnants of the Wa Protecting You Katsuki Bakugo X Reader. 4.7M174K. Currently editing. Ranked number 2 in fanfics out of 1 million. Katsuki Bakugo X Reader. And quote, I may not be a hero yet, but be damn sure that I'll protect you. Always. End quote. A Dragon's Trust Book 1. 2.2M 60.6K. A Dragon's Trust BNHA Various X Nightlight. Reader Book 1. End quote. W. What are you? End quote. End quote. A friend. End quote. Tilde 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 tilde. Female. Reader. Male and female love interest. Essence of a true hero. 1.4K37. Izuku Midoriya always wanted to be a hero since he was a little kid. Since he saw the great All Might save so many lives, that has been his one dream. After being diagno, frick. 72K 2.1K. To the power of n and quad, frick. Why don't you just say fuck? And quad, in which a girl who wants swear and a boy who SWE. Possessive. Katsuki Bakugo. 21.8K 253. Fem. Reader X Katsuki Bakugo. My Hero Academia fanfic. Sparkles sparkles sparkles. YN wants more than anything to become a hero. But, she knows how hard it will be because of her terrible queer. The Cybernetic Hero. 8.3K 161. In a world full of quirks, Izuku Midoriya is part of the 2% that don't have quirks. After being constantly bullied by his childhood and quad friend and quad, Midoriya is. Sue, Iida and Bakugo didn't know what to say. After all, what Midoriya said was valid. Yes, they don't blame him for what happened. In fact, it didn't even come up in the first place. However, it well indeed could have been prevented, and for someone as calculated as Izuku it's devastating. The three were just standing watching their friend self-loathe, unable to make a reply that would potentially just make the situation worse. Blank, underscore, blank, underscore, blank. Back in Heights Alliance, the class were gathered around the common area, except for Sato and Yaoyorozu were at the kitchen. After finding out about what happened, the atmosphere had been tense, so they figured baking cakes and making tea would ease the situation. Why is it always those two? Why can't the villains give them a break? Mineta expressed his frustration, slamming the coffee table with his hands. Kirishima was just as exasperated, staring at the ground intently. I heard that muscular dude had some grudge with Midoriya. Arg, damn it, we should have been there to help. Calm down, Eiji. I know you're worked up. I am too, but Mr. Aizawa said even the police and the pros arrived when the fight ended. There's nothing we could have done. I just wish they're alright at least. Mina said while comforting Kirishima. I could only imagine what Midoriya would feel. Fumikage uttered while fiddling with his fingers. I heard the villain had a personal vendetta against him, and that's why they encountered him in the first place. He added, yeah, Bakugo was right. Midoriya's probably blaming himself right now for because of that. Denki remarks, I hope the others would convince him it wasn't. Midoriya has been through enough. By the way, here you go guys, I know it's been stressful, so I made cake for everyone. Sato joined the conversation while serving the class cheesecake. Zero got a small plate and took the first slice. Thanks, Sato. Anyway, are we sure it's a good idea for Bakugo to be there? I mean, no offense, the guy's less antagonizing, but he still needs to work on his positive reinforcement. Blank, underscore, blank, underscore, blank. In the hospital, this was a different Midoriya. He was not cold, angry, or raging with contempt. He was almost like an empty shell. Sue, Iida and Katsuki have been watching Midoriya just sit beside Ochako quietly. Midoriya, Kiro, we're worried about you. You're injured as well. Sue was getting more disheartened about what was happening. She couldn't do anything for Izuku. She can't just tell him to get over it. Stop worrying about it or just try to look at the bright side because she knew it would make it worse. After all, seeing Ochako at that state was hard for her too. She can't fathom what Izuku's feeling. I'm fine, Suyu. Don't worry about me. Deku replied, applying pressure on his side. Iida on the other hand got more worried. He was the Midoriya and Uraraka's first friend in Ua, the friend who saw and felt firsthand the brewing feelings both of his friends had for one another. Even so, he's still hesitant to speak, but he was determined to help in some way, even just a little. Midoriya, have you at least eaten breakfast? Tenya asked, which earned a weird stare from Bakugo. I haven't. But I'm fine. Midoriya, don't punish yourself. What happened wasn't your fault, it was that villain's. I said I'm fine, Iida. Izuku said with a stern voice. You guys don't understand. I was weak. A lot of people got hurt because of me. It's always me. Deku stared at the hands that were holding on Ochako's. My quirk, my responsibility. How can I be the new symbol of peace if I can't even prevent this from happening? I'm way over my head thinking this could work, being with her while being a holder of one for all. Even after the war they're still going after me. Muscular. Toga, I did this to her. I'm never going to forgive myself because of that. Izuku muttered, glancing back at Ochako leaving the Sue and Iida unable to respond. So what now? Are you planning on dumping her? Katsuki suddenly replied rhetorically, leaving the other two staggered. Bakugo, you shouldn't. Iida replied but was interrupted. Maybe. Izuku uttered. Midoriya, you don't really think that's a good idea, right? Maybe it is, Suyu. Ribbit, I won't blame you if you feel that way, Izuku. The blonde said, approaching Midoriya. Bakugo, don't provoke him. Iida whispered in Katsuki's ear, but he didn't listen. He just went closer to Midoriya until he was standing beside where Izuku sat. I know how important being a symbol is to you, but I also know how important round cheeks is to you. Kachin, please spare me the. He replied but stopped when Bakugo placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm not good in advices, Izuku. I can't tell you to stop thinking what you are thinking, but at least think about what round cheeks would feel. We both know for a fact that she'll never blame you for anything. It doesn't matter, Kachin. Well, it sure is to her, Izuku, but if you're really set on ending it, do it when she wakes up. Bakugo said, removing his hand from Izuku's shoulder and paced back to Iida and Sue. The three then begrudgingly left the room, feeling more worried about Midoriya's well-being. Why did you just confront him like that, Bakugo? Although I can't say I'm not surprised on how well you handled the situation, Iida asked as they walked to the hallway. You also know them four eyes. Izuku will never leave round cheeks even if he wants to. She won't let him. He just needed some time to process things. To get out of his own head. Katsuki replied while his hands were tucked in his pockets. Blank, underscore, blank, underscore, blank. Author's note. Sorry for writing such a short, depressing chapter. If I handled it wrong, I apologize. Thanks for reading, guys.